And before we tackle something as complex as a dragon, we need reference. We ourselves can't fly. We don't know what it's like to fly, so we need to watch other birds. When possible, find something on Vimeo. This is actually a great little piece. If you can sort of see the URL up there. Take a second to copy that, or just do slow motion bird flight Vimeo, and you'll find things like this. Really high quality video with no commercials, no ads, annoying all of us. Watch how the wings come up, capture the air. And even though it seems like counterintuitively they'd be moving backwards with a downstroke, they're obviously moving forwards. Slight curvature on the way up, but very stiff, and bending on the way up, and slow on the way back. Watch the first few flaps that he takes. Capturing the air and forward motion. So stiff on the way down, bent on the way up. Also get a little bit of an idea of the shape of the wing here and the reflection as well. So we do some takeoff and landings of this big old beast, but the size and weight of this heron, I think it's either a heron or some sort of crane. Somewhere in Copenhagen, looks like a heron. Great line of action. Look at that leap off the side of the canal. Just doing a great job. So take a look at the reference after you do a few of these bird cycles and just sort of check and see what you did against nature. If it's not holding itself up, then double check with nature and see where you may have messed up. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and just hide this guy and bring back the old dragon. Alright, this big Brutus here comes in like this. You definitely want to show just the polygons and the NURB curves. Don't show anything else really. You definitely do not want to show the joints. Once you turn the joints on, you're going to cause yourself all kinds of problems. Just keep those hidden. And in my case, I turned everything, the geo, which is on a separate layer, click on to reference so that I can't select the geometry and accidentally provide some polygon, some sort of keyframes on those things. So he looks pretty straightforward. The first thing I want to do is sort of get him into a pose. Pose in flight. This is not really flying, he's sort of flapping in place, which is sort of hovering. So I'll make some changing adjustments to this, but my first pose here is just an initial trial run. I took everything in this character and I've also made a character set for you. You may go into character set if possible, but pretty much all you need to do is turn on NURB curves and turn off polygons and everything else in the scene, and select all of the NURB curves. There they are. So they're all selected. Anything that's animatable is a NURB curve. And I simply went up to animation, went to key, and created a character set out of those selections and called it dragon. I keyed only everything but the scale and visibility, all keyable elements, including the sliders that they use here. For most of the objects have sliders, and those things are also keyable as well. Some things are locked, so you can't key them. But rotation here, rotation there, position. Pole vector constraints here. So let's go through this dragon and kind of give it a quick tour and see what she's made of. I'm going to take everything that we see here, all the keyframes here. Even if nothing's selected, I still have a keyframe there. Keyframe number 2 stands for this entire pose. So I shift click on key number 2, right click and cut that. Keyframe number 2 is set back to 0. With nothing selected, I hit S. Everything now has a key. It takes a second for it all to come in, but let's just put this guy into a pose. Okay, so the arms by default are inverse kinematic. You can set the inverse kinematic controls with this little plus sign by the arm right there. There we go. So it's set to IK-FK blend. It's set to 10, which means it's fully IK. If I set this to 0, you would have this forward kinematic situation where I can bend the elbows like that in a forward kinematic way. I just prefer, in most cases, to keep that inverse kinematic. That way I can really control the arcs. It seems counterintuitive, but I think controlling arc motion is pretty important. So I'm going to set this position here with the wrist up, the hands up, like that. I have auto key turned on. I've set the keyframe for number 2. I hit S. First thing I did when I moved the keyframe to number 2, I hit S to set that keyframe. Hit rotation on the hands. When I rotate, all of the other goodies, all the other fingers and stuff get moved around as well. So simple kind of free gimbals there. Move it right up to there. And he's going to be on the way down, so I'm thinking probably elbow fairly straight in line with the wind, and just try to get some sort of similarity with the other side. I'm so paranoid about twinning that even in a flap cycle, I hate to twin the two sides, so I tend to animate with them a little bit off. It's probably not a good idea, but okay. So there you go. Well, not really, because the body isn't really lined up with where the wind is coming. The wind is coming from this direction, coming this way. This body is doing all kinds of wibbly wobblies on there, so it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Okay, so let's first take the hip and align the hip with the rest of the world. So I'm just going to use the move tool, grab the hip control, and rotate it upward like that. So it goes right into the wind. Well, the rest of the body needs to be realigned. So I'm going to take these controls here. By the way, you can switch this from forward kinematic, sorry, to inverse kinematic by doing an IK-FK blend here. And now with these guys, you can control the body with these forward inverse kinematic controls. And that may actually give you some better results with a fly cycle. So you can try that. You can rotate them as well as position them so you get these nice control. Yeah, let's go with the inverse kinematic on the head too. It's got a stretch IK here system, like a spline IK. So we'll keep them on model, but I'm going to be moving a lot here like this, so I think that gives us a better result. Now let's get the feet aligned. So I'm going to grab the feet. We'll do a little bit more with the feet controls here. Go, pull the feet back. Both those controls back like that. Probably shift grab both of them and just move them back simultaneously. One thing that the foot has, you kind of notice the way the back feet on almost every animal is like an accordion. See, like that? But this guy has this roll angle. No, it's not the roll angle. Where is it? It's the leg. Yeah, leg aim. With the leg aim control, you can adjust which way that is going to bend first. Like right now, it's bending more at the knee and less at the ankle. Right there. But if I take the leg aim and I pull it this way, sort of halfway in between the two numbers, now I get this kind of even bending between the knee and the ankle. So probably keep those pretty much the same on both sides. So legging 7.9, 7.5. Whatever looks good, just set them both to be the same thing. You've got this knee constraint as well, knee roll, so you can roll the leg one way or the other. Looks pretty good. You have a toe roll here, so if you go down here to toe, you can roll the toes back, which gives them a bit more aerodynamic look. And a little bit of a fussy part is going in here to the controls this way, and you select multiple controls and turn them all like that. Also, I'm going to close them up a little bit at the base metatarsal, the base joint, and take the other two joints and rotate them backwards. Like that. That way we get a nice line of action. Everything helps. Believe it or not, even these little details like this help give that character much nicer flow and aerodynamic look to them. And even though it seems like you're spending a lot of time on some real basic stuff here, little stuff, it does help. Most professionals spend, I've heard, between an hour and a full day on one pose. One single pose. And most of these guys have huge amounts of control. These big long circles here, these big half discs, circles here, are controls for the shoulders. So as the character's pushing down against the wind, those shoulders kind of come back. He's reaching backwards too. The other side is over here, the red side. Find those controls and pull them back like that. Those may require you to pull the wings up a little bit higher. And again, back a little bit on the upstroke. You know, the wings are pretty straight, which is pretty boring. Let's do something. We'll kind of ignore the fingers for right now. We'll get back to those in a second. You have these little metatarsal controls right here at the base of every joint. So we can definitely rotate these guys up like this. That guy can kind of come up and also forward. If you notice on our reference, the egret really spreads the wings forward on the downstroke. So you can almost stretch these guys pretty far. That membrane right there is nicely designed where we can stretch these winglets. And even the base here, there, we can also keep that thing nice and straight. So a nice forward swoop is good. You can also take this whole hand and twist the whole entire hand forward. Might be even faster than dealing with all these guys. Not sure whether in flight these claws would be outreached like that. I think I'd probably like to bend him just to relax him a little bit. He's flying, he's not thinking about clawing anything yet, so let's bend the fingers a bit. Bend the base. Take this finger and just get the spread out of it. A little bit too crazy excessive there. I think these probably will control that entire. They control that entire hand. Selecting all three of those finger controls simultaneously and just bending them all at the same time. Again, unspreading this hand a little bit, bending it down. Let's take those last two controls and bend them. It's a little more natural. I always wish I had like a shortcut. I could tell you guys, hey, just do this, this, and this, and you'd be like, boom, you're done. But unfortunately, this kind of animation is just absolutely time-consuming. To do it right, you got to spend the time to do it right. And the first thing you do is just pose the darn thing in a way that looks cool, looks natural, feels like it flows. When you push down against the wind, the back of the wing is going to flap upward. So that Z control right there, the Z axis, is what I'm using to bring it up and down. We'll close his jaw. His jaw control's right there. Just get him in a kind of flying mode. So he doesn't want to eat any bugs on the way through. And I'm going to just give a little bit more of a wiggle to his tail, just so it looks a little more soft. There we go. And that tail will actually bend and kind of flop like a fishtail as we animate. So probably hold off and do all that motion on a later date. But as he's coming up, as his body is moving upward like this, the wings are going down. That means his body's moving up. That means his head and his neck is probably going down as well. And also the base of his tail here is going down. So let me just kind of think about that for a second. And I'll probably take this guy here. Yeah, this guy would be body's coming up, so the base of his tail is kind of arcing down like this. Just soften that a little bit more. Okay, so again we have the major force of the body heading up like this. Therefore, this part of the tail is going to be pushed down. This part of the neck is going to be pushed down. The neck is more muscular, and it's going to fight against that a little bit more. But this is sort of like the last thing that happened before. Like, as he was, the wings were coming up and his body was coming down. That's what this little ripple here was coming up while the body was going down. So this is going to flow through the rest of the body. You'll see in a second. Mostly when we do the next couple poses, we'll get that figured out. Okay, so it probably won't look right the first time out, so that's just the way it is. We have to kind of do it several times and try again a little bit different way, but after a while we start to get the look we're after. I'm just going to pull the feet in a little bit better. I don't really want them twinned like that. And also I'm just going to change the angle a little bit just to break symmetry. Go. Maybe make one foot a little more different shape than the other one. He's got a cramp in his foot while he's flying, so one toe's coming down a little more than the other one is. Just break symmetry when you can, and especially with the head. Things aren't exactly even both sides, so Don't go crazy. You don't want to have it fighting the wind. Or if you can, introduce a little bit of complexity, even if it's subtle. All right, so there we go. Pose 1 is down. And one thing you can do also, turn on NURBS curves, turn that off. Hit 7 on the keyboard. If you have no lights in the scene, 7 on the keyboard allows you to see the whole thing in silhouette. So check the thing out in silhouette. Make sure that it looks good in silhouette mode. If it doesn't look cool in silhouette, go back and reassess what you're doing and repose the character. So back to number 6. So you got all that beautiful shading work in there done by Truong, and go on from there.